We're going to have about a 5-minute delay. We're waiting on someone to come from upstairs. Just bear with us.
Pretty much, you know, I mean, you don't have to stay down here if you guys are going on upstairs. Okay, so pretty much, Shar brings out like 3 packets, 1 for each case. We'll go through it. We start with this one, initial shifts for the hearing, and then we'll go, we'll just cycle through. I just have to take a look, see what we're working with. Well, no, I don't bring it. Shar brings the packet down. Yeah. I mean, yeah, if you wanna, you know. It's really simple. Maybe you can stay around for the first one. We'll see how I do it. Okay, cool. Yeah. Or you can stay the whole time, depending on what you want. Yeah. You know? Would be.
Welcome everybody to the Caddo Parish Planning and Zoning Commission for Wednesday, January 25th. We're going to call the meeting to order. Each one of our meetings with an invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would care to participate, please stand.
Let us now. Blessed Lord, how we thank you for being so gracious and merciful and kind unto each of us. And, oh Lord, you've allowed us to assemble ourselves in this place. We pray, dear Father, that your divine, your Holy Spirit will lead us, direct us, and guide us in all the decisions that need to be made on this day. When all said is done, that you will get the praise, the honor, and the glory. We ask now all of these blessings in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Humphrey. Ms. Hart. Okay, I'm going to start with some opening remarks on the PZC opening remarks and procedures. Once again, welcome to our regularly scheduled public meeting of the Caddo Parish Planning and Zoning Commission. For public hearing agenda items, if you wish to make public comments on an application, we have PZC comment slips at the speaker stand, which is down here in front of me next to the podium. For future notification purposes, it is very important that you fill out a slip and drop it in the box when you come forward to speak. Please state your full name, your mailing address, and zip code before addressing the board. We will call each case on the agenda in order and hear from first from the applicant and then those speaking in favor. 10 minutes are allotted for the principal spokesperson and 3 minutes for each additional speaker. We will then hear from those wishing to speak against an application. Again, 10 minutes are allotted for the principal spokesperson and 3 minutes for each additional speaker. One representative of the application can then speak in rebuttal if desired. After hearing comments on each case, the board will then immediately deliberate and vote on that case before moving on to the next case on our agenda. Please note that when the board is deliberating, members of the public are not permitted to comment. Any member of the public may request a copy of the board's decision on a particular case by contacting our office at 318-673-6480 after 1 p.m. tomorrow, or by accessing our website at shreveportcaddompc.com. For consent agenda items and other agenda items not requiring a public hearing, public comments can be made upon request by filling out an MPC comment slip. If comments are requested for a specific agenda item, The chair will offer an opportunity for those comments prior to the commission taking action on the agenda item. All of the PZC's board zoning recommendations are submitted to the parish commission for a final decision. Please note that it is your responsibility to contact the governing body about their procedures as related to the matter you are concerned with. Copies of this document and the phone numbers to contact the governing bodies are available on the table next to the podium and in the entryway to this room. As a courtesy, please remember to turn off all your cell phones while the MPC board is in session. The commission values your testimony and we appreciate your compliance with these guidelines. Okay, that takes us to item number 5 on our agenda, which is the approval of the minutes for the December 28, 2022 meeting. Do we have a motion to approve those, or a motion from the board?
Yeah, I move that we approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Brown to approve the meeting minutes for the December 28th meeting.
I'll second.
A second by Mr. Marshy. We're ready to vote. All right, by a vote of 6-0, those minutes are adopted. That takes us into the scheduled public hearings. Agenda item number 6, case number 2226P, small plan unit development, Polaris Services, L.L.C. Do we have someone? Okay.
Good afternoon. Ricky Wood, Polaris Services, 3602 North Market Street, 71107. I'm here representing the owner in this case, seeking the small plan unit development rezoning. Understand stipulations will be required for the site plan to be completed per ordinance and per direction. But at this time, we're just seeking to get this approved so that we can move forward with this, for this development, to bring it into an operational and C of O obtainable business. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we have any questions for the speaker? For the speaker from the board. Does the board have any questions for the speaker? Okay, no questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else here that would like to come and speak in favor of the application? Please come forward. Did you want to come forward, sir?
I'm actually in opposition.
Are you opposition or are you for?
I'm both. Because I'm here to find out some answers.
Okay, Mr. Bernstein, under what side does he speak if he's if he's somewhat neutral? I'm not real sure what's.
I would finish calling for people speaking in support, and then at that point,
Okay.
and I don't think there is anybody,
Okay,
so.
all right, hold on, stay right there, sir. Is there anybody else here that would like to speak in support of the application? Okay, then we'll have you come forward as someone in the middle, let's just say it that way.
My name is James Beasley. I own a home at 4507 Lee Avenue, which is in this subdivision.
Okay,
I put down that in my mailing address because I do get mail there sometimes, but I actually live somewhere else right now. My daughter lives there. My question about it is, will there be any commercial burning being done there in the future? Good answer. Secondly, will there be any noise after 8 o'clock at night? And will there be a road put in from Regmar to the commercial property? I mean, this is a residential section, old subdivision. We built our house there in 1959. I plan to move back. And so that was my objections, and they've been met, and I don't have a problem.
okay, if you'll stay right there just for a second. Mr. Clark.
I think that Mr. Wood and Republic could come and answer.
Okay, okay. So we're gonna let Mr. Wood come back up to the podium, who is the person that spoke before you, and perhaps he can shed some light on those.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you for coming in. Okay, anybody else that would like to speak in favor of the application? Okay, seeing none, do we have anybody here that would like to speak in opposition for the application? And this will be the primary spokesperson that comes forward, so.
Good afternoon. My name is William Webb. I live at 4629 Old Morningsport Road, 71107. And I spoke before in opposition to this, and I continue to speak in opposition to this. It seems to me that this SPUD is an attempt to sidestep all the regulations concerning an R17 zone and a C1 zone like the thing's been zoned at presently. This property has not been in compliance with the prior zoning amendment, which was granted 3 years ago and change. There's still no certificate of occupancy. There's been a lack of proper enforcement. Properties, to address his concerns, there's been burning going on there for 3 years, which stopped after this last meeting. All right, and I went through your UDC program there and looked up some things. The zoning compatibility is not in compliance with the rest of the neighborhood. And where's the benefit for everybody? According to section 16.2, section E, you know, there's supposed to be a benefit to everybody in the neighborhood. And where's the benefit from having a piece of property that has not been in compliance, that will not be in compliance with the ordinary usage of an R17 lot? So how does that benefit us? It creates nonconformities. The purpose, impact, and name, let's see, approval standards. All right, it's not compatible with the adjacent properties. I mean, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's a residential neighborhood, and nobody's excited about having a business there with all these trucks and multiple buildings on the site. I mean, I know if I parked a double wide out back of my house and decided to open a construction business and had multiple trucks parked there day and night, that I would be in non-compliance and you folks would come down and shut me down. But this man's been allowed to carry on like this for over 3 years. So I don't have a good feeling that any change in zoning is going to be in compliance, especially considering it hasn't been consistently enforced. It will alter the essential nature of the locality. And I read that the certificate of occupancy, it is unlawful to operate a business without a CO. It's been going on for over 3 years. No use of any of the buildings or structures on the property without a CO is allowable. Each day is a separate offense and each shall be punished according to your rules and regulations. Let's see. Non-conforming. A non-conforming use cannot be expanded or increased in intensity, which is what he's looking to do because the front half of his property is zoned C1 and the back half is still R17. He wants to convert it all back to R17 because apparently that allows him to park his trucks there. Now, if you drive by the property, it's clean, but it has the look, you know, I don't want to see our neighborhood turn into Houghton, basically. You know, the guy's got fuel tank, tractors, trucks, multiple buildings on the site. You know, they're all easily visible from the road. The trucks are parked right out there where you can see them day and night. So how does this improve our standard of living in the neighborhood? How does this affect our property values? And what's to prevent anybody else in the neighborhood from deciding, hey, if he can have a business here and do that, then I should be able to. You know, what's the point of having zoning laws if this kind of usage is allowed? That's basically what it boils down to. It's a completely residential neighborhood except for the one neighbor he's got that's a tin knocking shop that's been there forever. and that's on 71. But all the rest of the property around there is all residential. Small homes, you know, where it's not a rich neighborhood. So why would we want a business there? That's all I got to say.
Okay, Mr. Webb. Do we have any questions for the
I do.
speaker? Okay, go right ahead, Mr. Brown.
Mr. Webb, where on that map do you live? You said Old Morningsport Road. Are you on Regmar?
No, I'm not on Regmar. My property abuts him in the back left corner.
Can you
Okay.
point to that on the map, please?
Sure. That would be right there, that little narrow strip back there. I'm right behind the tin knocking shop and next to my neighbor who's also not happy about this.
Mr. Webb, did you attend the neighborhood participation meeting?
I sure did,
Okay,
both of them.
okay.
So far, I've been to 2 neighborhood participation meetings, and this is my second one of these meetings. I was kind of discouraged and unhappy about the fact that even though I was here, filled out the paperwork, and spoke at the last meeting, I never got a letter about this meeting. You know, and I wonder, since I don't see a lot of my neighbors here that complained the last time, why they're not here, and I can only assume that they didn't receive a letter either. The only letter that came to my mailbox was addressed to the prior owner of my property. And of course, it's illegal for me to open that up. But I knew what it was about, so I looked into it and found the date. So I don't think the people in the neighborhood have been properly notified that this meeting was even happening.
Mr. Clark, bear with me just a second. When we have in this case, a defer and continue, because that's what happened, and then it's come back under a PUD, a C1, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of months ago. What is the the notification requirement?
We're trying to determine right now, Madam Chair, if notifications went out. I don't think they normally go out after the first notifications go out, and even if you defer and continue, but we're trying to verify that right now.
Okay.
It's something that we will make note of, and it requires attention be addressed to that. If it's not happening, we need to immediately make sure that it begins to happen.
Okay. Mr. Webb, you made a comment, I wrote it down, that the homeowner was trying to go back, take a portion, or go back to an R17 zoning. What exactly do you mean by that?
What happened was, my understanding from the last meeting and from my neighbors is back in 2019, that was a R17 piece of property, and the front part of the lot was rezoned to commercial so that he could have a contractor's office there. Now, my understanding is with a contractor's office, he's allowed to have his vehicle there, but not all his company's trucks and whatnot. And his trucks have been parked there all along. So now he wants to take it back to an R17 because apparently, for some reason, if it's an R17, he can park all his trucks there, which makes no sense whatsoever.
Okay, hold on.
It's because of the SPUD.
Okay.
It's because of the SPUD.
Okay, I'm
We're
gonna-
working back to
yeah.
R17 and then we're the SPUD.
And I would like, Mr. Clark, I'm going to ask you, or someone from your staff to come, get involved in this conversation, because I want to make sure that we have a clear understanding of what's happening with this application.
Absolutely, and
Okay.
Mr. Jean has been studying it with
Okay.
the planning staff. I'm just gonna
Okay.
ask them to respond.
There just
to-
seems to be some confusion, so I think this
I
would be a good time
understand.
to clear that up. Okay.
So the original request when you went to C1 was for an office, not a contractor's office. And it became evident that what was really happening was a contractor's office. So that's when he came back and wanted to zone it to a heavier district. We did not recommend that, as you recall. So now what's happening is the base zoning would go back to R17, but it would be with a planned unit development, which is, there's things on that site plan that are intended to help mitigate or lessen the impact of the use on the neighboring properties, such as the locations of where the vehicles will park, about the addition of additional screening that will go on the property, and things of that nature to make it more compatible. So yes, it does go back to R17, but since it's a planned unit development, he puts amenities in place that was discussed at that last NPP meeting you attended, and which gives him the right to ask for ordinance relief. In this case, he's asking for the use of the contractor's office, and that's the only commercial use he will be allowed to have. No other commercial use would be allowed there besides that. And so that's why it seems a little confusing. He's going back, but he's agreeing to go back to the base zoning and limit his request only to the contractor's office.
Yeah, but you're also talking about the addition of another 2,800 square foot building on the property. And one of the biggest problems for the neighborhood has been the drainage problems that we have there. Now, originally, if you go back to that picture he had there, along the right-hand side of the property in the front, there used to be all those trees. 95% of them have been cut down and burned. So now there's nothing there absorbing water, and the neighbors on Regmar have water problems in their backyard. One of the couples that lives there has water coming into their home, which never used to happen. So, you know, on the plan that's in front of us, I don't see anything. I know the landscaping plans get done later, but I don't see anything about remediation of the drainage problems, which was one of the biggest issues all the neighbors on Regmar had.
And I'm going to let him go ahead on, Madam Chair, but if you remember in your pre-briefing, that there was discussion about a swale, and there was discussion about a detention pond to detain the water to prevent the flooding from happening. But I'll let Stephen continue to talk about it.
All right.
So that is one of the amenities that this applicant has put on the table in order to, in exchange for this right, is they're going to introduce a swale or bring the water to a detention basin. And he's also agreed to monitor that basin for the next 5 years to be sure that it actually is functioning properly. So that's one of the things that you heard the neighbors, and this plan is reflecting that concern in an attempt to try to address it.
And what about foliage and whatnot?
He's planting trees, 3 ornamental trees every 30 linear foot and 1 shrub every 3 linear foot.
Right, which was supposed to happen starting in 2019. Hasn't happened yet. Instead of planting trees, there's been trees removed.
Right, but see, that's...
Which has exacerbated the whole problem.
Right, but see, he has to put them back. That's part of this SPUD, you know, it's part of the requirement is he's got to put trees back, shrubs back. He's got to have a detention pond. He's got to monitor that, come back, reassess it in 5 years. If more needs to be done, he's going to have to do that. And he's got to fix all the fences, and he's got to do a garden area. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that he's, you know, going to spend money on and do for the option to have some of his commercial trucks parked there.
And will all this be done before a CO is granted? Because it hasn't happened up to date.
Done before a certificate of occupancy can be issued. The zoning administrator is sitting in the horseshoe, and he will be the issuing authority for the certificate of occupancy. But in order to get to this point, you alluded to non-conforming and illegal activities occurring on the site. In order to get to this point where it is certificate of occupancy eligible, this PUD was necessary, and all of these things must be met prior to him being able to get a certificate of occupancy.
That was all supposed to be done when he got his C1.
We're past that now.
Okay. So we're just going to ignore all the fact of the non-compliance.
Nothing, evidently it did not happen. You're absolutely right. We're trying to correct the situation now, bring the property into compliance, and ensure that all violations are removed in order to, respect the concerns of neighbors like yourselves up there.
Okay. I can't say that I have a lot of confidence in that happening.
I understand.
And I understand that. This case came before us, the meeting before last, and there was a lot of information that was given to us, given to this board by the neighbors that, and I'm quite honestly, some of it was very concerning. I actually made the recommendation to look at this for the plan unit development, the small plan, the SPUD, because I felt like it was going to give the neighbors a voice and what needed to be done to make them happy. So y'all could have a place at the table, because it didn't seem like there was a lot of communication and
Involvement.
well, just involvement in general. You were very far apart in the way you were, what we were hearing from you, the neighbors, and where the applicant was. This zoning will give an opportunity for some mitigation, for him to give some things that will help offset some of the things that y'all are concerned about. And that was the reason why I asked for it to be deferred and for this to be looked at by the staff with the applicant. It's the best thing that I could bring forward as a board member to say, I'm not ready to, give up on this completely or rule one way or the other. Maybe we need to go back to the drawing board on this.
I believe because so far there's nothing other than planting some trees that was supposed to be done in the first place. Where does this improve our neighborhood? There's a fuel oil tank out in front. There's multiple buildings out in front.
Well,
It doesn't look like a residential neighborhood.
I want to ask you a question. You spoke a lot about violations, and just call it violations. Have you called in these? I'm just curious as to where you were in notifying this staff, Mr. Jordan's people, about.
I was nowhere on it, to be honest with you. I didn't realize until this application came forth initially what was involved and how many violations were happening. And of course, all the other neighbors, they're too polite to speak up about it. Basically, nobody wants to be that jerk neighbor that's a pain in the butt. Me, I'm willing to be that guy.
Well, we appreciate you coming in. It's your neighborhood, and we understand. I'm a resident of Cattle Parish too, just like you. But I don't live in your area. I live out in north, and I'm very familiar with this area, and I'm very familiar with the flooding issue you have in the Regmar neighborhood. I knew someone that lived there, and it was a problem. Mr. Jordan, can I ask you a question? And we're trying to move forward with this. We're trying to find an answer. And so
Sure.
that's kind of, that's what I want to get across, is that we need to have a meeting of the minds and try to have a decision here that is good for the applicant, but also something that the neighborhood benefits from. It is a concern to me, sitting here, that there have been violations that, for whatever reason, have not, been taken care of, have not stopped, whatever word you want to use. The burning was a big concern of mine.
Sure.
When we were here 2 months ago, and I'm glad to hear that stopped. That's a health concern. Mr. Jordan, can you tell me and the rest of this board what happened with the violations? Because we have people here from the neighborhood that are, I know it's kind of going backwards, but I think it would give them a little bit of comfort maybe to know where we were on that and how we got here.
Well, violations, as far as our department, we can't just make the people stop the violation. It's a process that has to take place as far as them being notified, trying to rectify the situation, coming to compliance. And from there, if they don't, it will, like in this case, it's in the parish, it will go to Mr. Bernstein's office, and from there to the DA's office.
Okay.
So, and then it will be up to the DA to determine what happens, but all of that takes time, so it's not an immediate stoppage of wrongdoing.
Okay, so did you receive any notifications from anybody regarding this property, this applicant, this?
I want to say it has been turned over to Mr. Bernstein's office, but I was about to look it up. I'm
Okay,
not sure.
can you get back with me on that and let us know? Okay, all right, so do we have any more questions for the speaker? Because we need to move forward, but I just wanted to get as many answers as I could for you standing at the podium.
May I just interject one last thing?
Sure, go right ahead,
Madam
Mr.
Chair?
Clark.
We just verified that notifications letters did go out
Okay,
to the residents within a 1,500-foot radius of this property. And those notifications went out on the week of December 27th to the 30th. So the neighborhood was properly notified that this matter would be before you today.
okay.
So apparently the post office let me down.
We can't control the
Right,
service.
I understand
It
that.
wouldn't be the first time, let me just say.
Yeah, don't we know?
Yeah, I mean, it happens. It's a problem.
I know from my perspective, the thing I'd like to be assured of,
Uh-huh.
and I don't see it in the current plan, is that all the vehicles and all the equipment and whatnot be positively parked in back. If this thing does get improved, I don't want to have to drive by and see all that stuff on the road. There's a fuel tank out front. There's those small buildings that are all there. You know, it just doesn't
Okay.
improve the neighborhood.
This is why I asked you if you went to the MPP, because we had this meeting, we had a work meeting before we come in here, and all this stuff was, unfolded, and we went over it. Mr. Jean, would you like to comment on the parking for those trucks and what the
Yes, one of the
situation-
items that these agreed to is the vehicle parking and equipment storage will be limited to the western side of the property, closest to the C2 zone property, so that it's out of sight of the residents on Regmar Drive.
And from 71?
It doesn't state that specifically, it's just a way, I just
Well,
read you.
I mean, he's put parking spots back there, but there's been no assurance that that would be the overnight parking for all his vehicles and equipment.
Well, I would.
That's the furthest back you can get from the road and the rest of the neighborhood.
Okay, so I would submit to you that that's when you need to make a phone call when there's a compliance issue to this gentleman sitting right over here.
Mr.
And
Jordan.
Mr. Jordan, I'm sure, can provide you some information how to get ahead of his office. And he's open for business.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you folks taking the time to listen to me.
And we thank you for coming in. All right, is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak against the application? Anybody else against the application? Okay, would the applicant like to come back and speak in rebuttal?
To comment, excuse me, on the first gentleman's questions, there will be no more burning. That was a big problem previously. There will be no material. This is a tree service, so the materials that they harvest, that they remove from their job sites, will be carried somewhere else to properly dispose of. I believe there's a limitation on their hours of operation. Not sure what they are, but generally his business day is from 8 to 5. If his trucks are on that property during the day, he's losing money and not working. So his employees will come in and park his employees will come in and park in this area here. Trucks that can fit in the building will be placed in the building. Now, these are 3/4 ton double cab pickups. They're not dump trucks. They're not large trucks. He does have some trailers, small trailers, dump trailers. What will fit in the building overnight will be in the building. Anything that won't fit in the building would be parked in this area here, west of the building. And the purpose of this garden area is specifically to add some additional landscaping, hedge, shrubbery, to kind of take away from what the neighbors over here may see. I think I answered most of your questions. The second gentleman that spoke, met him twice at the MPP meetings. The last one, Mr. Hutchinson, did agree to park his vehicles over here out of sight overnight at the end of the day so that they would not be visible to the neighbors back here. Against what was required at the time, he does have a 6-foot wood fence all the way around the side and the rear of the property. Some of the landscaping issues and drainage issues, I'll zoom in here. In this area, there's going to be about a 5-foot wide bottom swell, shallow swell, possibly 9 to 18 inches. We have a detail on here showing that. That is to control the water along this line here. And just to the west, the east side of that line, to the swell, instead of just building up a shallow berm, a short berm, Mr. Hutchinson agreed that we make those a little more enhanced, more in the shape of mounds that will have the landscaping that the ordinance requires, the trees as required, the shrubs as required in that landscape area. But also the swell will control the water. The mound or landscape berm will also keep any water on this property from draining to the east, further impacting the residential property over here. The buildings up front have been there this whole time. We do have an enhanced detention pond, not just a rectangle, an enhanced detention pond. Drainage calculations will be provided. This now and today is to get this small planned unit development, as we have noted that we're going to do per the MPP notes, per all the comments from the meetings, so that Mr. Hutchinson can move forward with a conforming business and get all the approvals that he needs to continue and carry on his business. He does not want to create any further problems. He was very well aware of how far he had gone against what was required of him. The entrance will be per DOTD requirements. We will have a permit that will be approved. In addition to this site plan, landscape plan, and all the details that we will add to this based on the requirements, the landscaping ordinances and all that will be met, will be reviewed before any approval of a site plan, landscape plan, details, and anything else are approved. Following that, we're going to have to prepare construction plans, drainage plans, and information like that to be able to submit to the parish and DOTD for permitting purposes. So this is the very first step of something to bring all of this property into what is being sought now by the small planned unit development and the ordinance release for the new building before anything else can go forward.
Okay.
I think.
I believe that, do we have any questions? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Green.
Thank you. And this may be your staff. Mr.
Can you pull your microphone down, honey?
Is that better?
Yes, ma'am.
This may be more to your team, Mr. Clark. Even though the neighbors may or may not be present for whatever reasons, maybe notification or just maybe there are no dissensions. But I hear and see the proposal of this project. But how do we, and maybe we should not, but how do we, or how is it verified and monitored that the plan of action here will be carried forth? I've heard it stated in the past that these commitments were made but not acted upon. So what measurements, thank you, can be assured to the neighbors that this project will move as being stated, documented?
To answer your question, that is the purpose of the zoning enforcement entity of the Metropolitan Planning Commission that has contracted with Caddo Parish to provide these enforcement services. As you've heard from Mr. Wood, he's very aware of all of the things. I don't think that we probably went through such a involved process in the beginning of this project, but he's hired, you know, the land surveying service, engineering services, and all of those things to draw up proper plans to be submitted to the proper authorities for approval. If he's done that, and once those things are done, in order to get a certificate of occupancy, all of those things would have to be met, and that will be done by Mr. Jordan and the inspectors. I don't know if I can sit here and tell you on any application that comes to any entity of government that there's a 100% assurance that everything will be done, but we have in place the necessary mechanisms to enforce this application if those things are not done. And those things can be enforced in district court as a last resort.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Any more questions for the speaker? Okay, I had one. I think one of the questions that was brought up by this gentleman down here, and I'll just go ahead and ask it so we can get clarity. He wanted to know if there was going to be a road on the property going out to Regmar.
There will not be. Mr. Hutchinson, this property owner, owns 2 lots that back up to the east line of this property. He has no intention. There was some discussion years ago about trying to do something there. Never went anywhere. Too many hurdles, too many inconsistencies. He owns those lots. He has offered, I say offered, they're vacant lots. He also has a contractor's license, and instead of having vacant lots there, has made comments at the second NPP meeting, and I believe he also called the MPC office and offered that he would seek to build houses there, new houses that would increase the value of the surrounding properties, as well as having something physically there from Regmar that would distract any view of his property behind it.
Okay. All right, I think that answers the question he had. I mean, I could see it in the packet, but I just wanted to get it on the
Sure.
record for him, so y'all can have some dialogue. Okay, are there any more questions for the applicant? All right, seeing none, we appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, board, do we have
I'll make a motion.
a motion?
Okay, I will make the motion that we accept the rezoning of the parcel, of the 2 parcels, the R17 and the C1 sections, to R17 SPUD, with the conditions that the final plan must be submitted for review and approved by the MPC Executive Director with the revisions included in the report prior to the issuance of any permits.
Okay,
A second.
all right, we have 3 seconds, so we have a motion by Mr. Marshy, a second by Mr. Humphrey, Mr. Brown, and Ms. Hart. Okay, any need for discussion, board?
The only other comments I'd make about discussion, the revisions that we're talking about are the ones that were published in the staff report to us. Those include just standard details that's required on a site plan approval. The current site plan that we've been looking at is not a fully completed plan.
Okay. Does that make sense, Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Okay.
We
Okay,
totally
just wanna
agree
make
with
sure
Mr. Marchi.
we all understand. Okay. Any other comments?
And that was my major concern,
Was
that
the,
statement, yes, and
Okay.
that agreed to.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I'm having problems hearing you all over here. You
Yeah,
know,
she was just
speaking
saying
to the mic,
she
please.
concurred with the same position that Mr. Marshib just
No
shared. with
problem.
us.
I was just sharing with, we're having problems hearing over here.
Yeah, can everybody just make sure that their microphone's pulled down, please? Okay,
It says my mic is, yeah, it should be plugged in. Yes.
all right, so I think at this point, we're ready to vote. Let's go bring up the portal. Okay, it looks like, if I'm reading this right, the split screen gets me every time. 6 yeses, and no nos. So this application will pass out of our chamber with a recommendation for approval to the next body. And that takes us to, thank you for coming in. Thank you for sharing your information with us. And y'all, we gave you some good information. Let me just close by saying this. We gave you some information that, you know, if there's anything that you see that's not something that you think is withstanding with what you've heard in here, we have an enforcement department for that. Be sure that you use them. And if you need the information, we can provide a contact number for y'all on that. Okay? Thank you. All right, we're going to go to the next case on the agenda, which is case 22-37-P, zoning map amendment, rezoning, RALEY and Associates. Do we have this primary spokesperson for this?
If I may, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Prior to this meeting, received a request from the property owner, Mr. David Alvis, in reference to the rezoning request for the Wallace Lake property currently owned. We are requesting that the hearing be deferred. This will allow time to modify our application. The C4 request was inaccurate. They're going to resubmit a different application, and they will be in the process in submitting the different application more aligned with a planned unit development at a neighborhood participation plan meeting, where they will meet with the neighbors and discuss all of the things that will happen in the development. So if the board accepts that deferral and continue, we will probably get a planned unit development together by your March meeting.
Okay. All right, I think if I'm not mistaken, the procedure requires me to move forward in
Yes,
case there
please.
are some other folks here that would like to speak in favor of the application. Since we don't have a primary spokesperson, I guess at this point I just go to the secondary request. If there's someone else here that would like to speak in favor of this application, come forward. Okay, seeing none, do we have a primary spokesperson that is against this application that would like to come forward for 10 minutes?
Good afternoon, Board. My name is Jeff Westmoreland. I'm an attorney with Wiener, Weiss & Madison here in Shreveport. My address is 330 Marshall Street, Suite 1000, Shreveport, Louisiana. Typically, you see us attorneys here in coat and tie. I apologize, I'm not in tie today. I can't get my right arm up far enough to tie a tie right now. I had surgery on my arm last week, so I appreciate your accommodation on that. Our firm represents Providence Development Company. As you may know, Providence Development Company is the developer for the Providence development on Southern Loop, but is also the developer for the Grove at Garrett Farms subdivision, which is on Wallace Lake, enters on Wallace Lake Road, and is the entrance of the Grove is right here, probably not even a quarter of a mile south from the subject property. As my letter to Mr. Clark, I hope all of you received a copy of that, indicates when the Grove is fully developed, it will have 182 residential lots, all coming out right on that entrance right there on Wallace Lake Road. I'd like to I've provided all of you with some photographs. These are photographs taken by myself. This is essentially, I'm pulled into a road that actually goes back to an oil and gas well, and that is the subject property to my left. And there are 4 houses sharing a common driveway to the south. And then there's one house immediately to the north of this property. There's 3 photographs there. The first 2 are essentially the same, and the last one is just a picture of us taking the listing from the road. As my letter indicates, I do have a small error in my letter. My letter says there's no commercial use along the stretch of Wallace Lake Road from Flournoy Lucas to the Southern Loop, with the exception of Whitaker Construction. And I told you the reason I forgot about Whitaker, I live in the Grove. I'm a resident there. I've been there 2 years. I drive that road multiple times a day. But the reason I forgot about Whitaker is because Whitaker is so far off the road and shielded by...
I believe the company's name is Wicker.
Oh, Wicker, okay. Wicker. And shielded by trees that you really don't even notice that it's there. But my point still stands. From that stretch of Flournoy Lucas to Southern Loop, there is what I would say almost no commercial development whatsoever. It's all residential. And it ranges from Lucian Fields Estates, which is a very large development, still growing and building out, to smaller homes, to the Grove, to across the street from the Grove where you see this lake here. There's some very large properties with very nice homes back there. It is a residential area. Our position is, and I think you'll hear from a lot of the neighbors too, is that maybe certain commercial uses that are amenable to residential development would be welcome there. But this type of, first of all, a zoning of a C2 through a C4 I think is just incompatible with everything that's going on along that stretch. Even under the PUD, I think you're still going to have problems because you have 4 homes right here. This property is going to sit practically on top of those. And I've looked at their location on Linwood, where they currently are, this contractor. And it's a large warehouse with a large yard. There's going to be almost no way to hide that project from Wallace Lake Road and from those neighbors. So I think, obviously, first, any change to a substantial commercial zoning is really just incompatible with everything that's going on along that route. And I feel like we're going to have more residential development. I know for a fact of some people who are trying to buy some more residential property up north of here to develop it even in a nicer fashion. Buy out some of those small homes and then create some more subdivisions. Now that's a hope, that's a maybe, but I know that there are people who are actively working on that. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves and on behalf of my client, but I do think we're still going to have concerns with the PUD there because of the nature of what is being requested to go on this site, and that is going to be a large warehouse with large yard. We're going to have substantial concerns with screening, just the compatibility of the structure and the aesthetics of it as compared to everything else on that road. I will also tell you that let's see, this road right here runs back to an oil and gas well right now, and we are seeing lots and lots of sand trucks running in and out of there right now. And quite frankly, I think they're tearing up Wallace Lake Road. If you start having a large commercial presence here, you're going to have more large tractor trailer traffic on a very, very narrow stretch of road there. So we definitely have a concern of any kind of C2 to C4 zoning change, but I will say, without getting ahead of ourselves, I think we're going to still have some concerns of this type of project under a PUD at this specific location.
Let me ask the staff something. The Southern Loop, is that currently mostly set up to be commercial? And how far is this piece of property from Southern Loop?
And I'm not sure how far this is from Southern Loop.
Probably a half a mile. Probably a half a mile, and a
Southern
lot of.
Loop is not set up to be totally commercial, but
okay, but
there's
there's a lot of
commercial
property on Southern Loop for sale.
Yes.
There is, and there are a number of commercial ventures going up there right now. You've got a climate-controlled storage. You've got a Greek Orthodox church there. I'm talking about coming from like Wallace Lake over towards Norris Ferry. Obviously, some other commercial developments as well.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Do we have any questions for Mr. Westmoreland?
I do.
Yes,
Hello
ma'am.
there. How are you doing today?
I'm great.
And I hear you very clearly. I want you to know that. But what would you like to see there? What would be compatible, possibly?
So obviously, office space use, light retail use, possibly restaurant type, food establishments, things that are, if you go over on Southern Loop and you look at what's coming up in the Providence development, you've got a coffee shop, you've got a couple of restaurants, you had a dry cleaners there at one point. These are commercial uses that are compatible with the neighborhood surrounding there. This is an electrical contractor and essentially just going to be a big metal building. So let's just say that even we want to allow that there, okay? Everybody's familiar with, I believe, familiar with what's happening with the Dunkin' Donuts on Kings Highway. I don't know if you are, but it's been an issue. In order to make it compatible with the neighborhood, he's building it to almost look like a home. And I think it's being built out of natural stone, if I'm not mistaken, spending a lot of money. I just don't think that you're going to see that kind of construction with this location and this business here. They're not going to want to make it look like a home or something other than a metal building. I may be wrong, but again, from what I'm seeing and what they have now, it's a big rectangular metal building with a big yard where they need to be able to store a lot of stuff. And it's just, I think with the future development of that part of Wallace Lake Road, I just think it's still going to be incompatible.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, any more questions for the speaker? Okay, thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Westmoreland.
Thank you
Good
for your
luck on
time.
arm.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, do we have anybody else that would like to come forward and speak in opposition for the application?
Hi, my name is Jerome Nicholas. I'm at 9922 Wallace Lake Road, and I think I am speaking for most of the rest of the people besides Mr. Westmoreland's group. I have about 5 letters here from people who could not attend the meeting because they had to work or other reasons. And then I have a group of other people, if y'all will all stand up. These are mostly people that live along the west side of Wallace Lake Road, south of the property in question. And we all, for the purposes of saving time for the board, we've sort of gotten our ideas together, and I would just like to list those, the reasons we're opposed to the development. As stated before, it's a residential area. Some of us have lived out there 25 to 30 years, and it's a rural residential area, which lends it to the fact that, oh, well, this is the Wild West out here, we can do whatever we want. Well, we're not doing that, and in the 25 years that I've lived there, it's become more residential. The property was attempted to be rezoned in, I believe, 2016 for this same type zoning, and that did not go through. And in the 7 years subsequent to that, the area is even more residential. You have the grove that's developed there, and more in that residential trend. So it's certainly a residential area, and this is just we feel like it's a spot zoning attempt. This will definitely diminish the value of our homes, and certainly the properties immediately adjacent to it, no matter what you do as far as mitigating the difference between the two zonings. The person next to it, his property is going to
his value is going to be decreased. We've already mentioned the traffic issues. When I moved out there, our mailboxes are across the street from our houses, and you could walk across, get your mail, no problem. Now you're taking your life in your hands. There's so much traffic out there already. And with that commercial use, we're of course afraid of increased crime and congestion. And as Mr. Westmoreland stated, unless you can dictate the architectural character of the construction that's going to go out there, then what you're going to have is an obviously commercial building that's incompatible with the look that exists out there. And we're also concerned with light pollution and noise pollution too. As stated before, we've got a lot of trucks going up and down there already due to the gas wells being drilled, and this is just going to exacerbate that situation.
Sir, your time is up. If you could just kind of
close
up for us.
I think I've covered everything. Anything else? Just the speed limit, we're concerned about that. It's a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit, and if you do less than 60, you're going to get rear-ended probably. So what we don't want to do is just have a situation like the previous case in which you allow some tightly restricted commercial use in there, and then a few years somebody comes back and says, hey, let's up this a little bit. And so it's a residential area. We want to keep it that way. I think you got strong support from everybody in the area.
We appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Okay, if you'll hold on just a second, I need to make sure that someone doesn't have a question for you.
Okay.
Does anybody on the board have a question for the speaker? Okay, Mr. Brown?
Yeah, so like, I know you mentioned the last case, and he's only able to do what's approved on that paper. Like, I mean, that business he's going to run, it's only going to be that business. Nobody else is going to get to come in and do something different. It's for that specific purpose. And the point of these planned unit developments, as I see it, is it's hard sometimes to tell somebody that owns property that they can't, use the property like they want to use it. And I know, like Mr. Westmoreland over here said that, all these fancy neighborhoods are coming in, and some people might like that, but other people might not. They might have liked it back when it was more rural, and now you've got these neighborhoods that come in that are going to push out some of those people. So it's a give or take, and that's kind of why we've done this planned unit development, because it makes that person that wants to use it a certain way sit down with all the landowners in that area and try to see if there's a possibility of something that will work.
Certainly.
And I mean, that's kind of, I think it's a really good thing, because it lets everybody actually kind of have a say in it, and it helps because we don't want to take people's property rights. I mean, one minute we're taking it from this guy not being able to use it, and then the next minute they're taking it from you and telling you you can't have cows out there anymore because the cow farts are bugging the people that live in the fancy neighborhood. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just trying to give you an example here, because, I mean, I'm a firm believer in private property rights.
No, and I understand, and that's why I wouldn't want your job, because you have to try to, make everybody happy, and then that's a difficult thing to do.
Would you and the neighbors be opposed to actually, I mean, it doesn't put anything into stone. Would y'all be opposed to actually, would y'all be interested in sitting down with this landowner and trying to see if there's a compromise?
I can't speak for everybody, but I would certainly be
I mean,
open to
it won't
discussing.
set it into stone. It just lets the process see if there's something that he can do with the aesthetics of it, the way it looks, or with shrubs, bushes, ponds. I mean, there's a lot of things that can be done that might actually help the neighbors in that area out. And that's just kind of where I am at it right now.
I wouldn't object to that. I can't speak for everybody else.
And to echo that sentiment, it's always good to have the communication, regardless if you end up working it out or not. It's nice to come to the table
Right.
when everybody has a vested interest, because like Mr. Brown said, it is a double-edged sword when it comes to property rights, because what happens today in here, there may be something down the line that, you know, ends up impacting something y'all have. I'm not saying that's gonna happen, but you just don't know. And it really, that prior case was, I think, probably and I've sat on 2 boards. I was on the combined board for Shreveport-Caddo, and now I'm here for Caddo Parish. It probably was one of the most successful cases. I don't know, Mr. Clark, if you feel that way. I mean, this thing, to be honest with you, looked like it was running in the ditch 2 months ago. And so, you know, they sat down and came up with, because there were a lot of people in here that were against that application. And I know it's not y'all's, and I know it's a little different, but they were able to come to some agreements on some things that helped them out, you know, flood-wise, and they got some issues there that could possibly help the whole neighborhood. He could help them. So I would highly recommend that you at least keep an open mind. We're not asking for any commitment or anybody here today to say, yes, we think, you know, we're gonna be on board with it. We just ask, possibly, we'll see what we're fixing to decide here, that you go to the table and have it in your mind what it is that you would like to see. What are your concerns, and what can you convey to the property owner? Because I understand it's a metal building. I get it, right? And that's a beautiful area, and it's a growing area, and the homes are beautiful, and then it's a metal building. I mean, so what can he do aesthetically to make that more pleasing to the neighborhood, and something that everybody can work with? And that's what this SPUD does. This is why I'm a proponent of it. This is why I love this neighborhood participation meeting, because it gets y'all to the table. You may not even know this person, but having that meeting brings you to the meeting of the homeowners, so that you do have concerns that you can convey to that property owner on what they're getting ready to do and how it might affect you. There may be things that he has not even thought about, right? Because of where you live in conjunction to his property. So having said that, I'm going to stop for just a second and ask if there's any more comments from the board, any more questions for this applicant, because we need to see if there's any other opposition that needs to come forward to speak, or if that you want to come. Okay. All right, so we'll, I think we don't have any more questions for you, but we're going to let the next speaker come up and tell us.
Could I ask one question?
Absolutely.
When you have this SPUD meeting, what is the notification requirement for that? Because I'm beyond the notification for this meeting. I just saw the sign on the properties.
Okay. Mr. Clark, can you?
We generally do 500 feet of the property, but we would expand this to 1,500 feet. I don't know if that would catch you or not. I mean, I'm not sure. We try to find the property owners that would be most impacted by this development to notify. But okay, you can call our office, and we'll be more than happy to add you to the list of notifications. Well, as long as we get some adequate notification, I'm open to conversation.
Okay, Mr. Clark, just for clarification, I just want to make sure, because we changed the notification here in the parish to 1,500 feet. It used to be 500, right, correct?
But we were talking about the NPP.
NPP, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, got it, okay. Okay, thank you, sir.
I'm Steve Thornton, 9846 Wallace Lake Road, 71106. I live next door to the property in question. Matter of fact, I live right here. My daughter lives here, and my son owns the property there. We did not receive any letters at any time. And numerous people in this room that I've talked to never received any letters.
Is that your primary residence?
I'm sorry?
Is that your primary residence?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay.
20 years worth. Yes, it sure is. And not only that, I called the MPC. Now, I talked to a lady, it might have been a secretary, I don't know who, and told her we had not received any letters on it. The neighbor to my south did, Pat Cobb, it's his property, and he told us about it. I called, and still, no one received any letters. So we don't know what that's all about, but, so I got on the horn, talked to the people you see here and whoever I could contact. But I don't know if the MPC or the, PZC, whoever, is aware there are 3 active pipelines running through this property. okay? I'm guessing the property's 170 to 200 foot wide, okay? On the north side of the property, there's an oil field road, which I don't think's on the property. Just adjacent to it on the property is an active pipeline. And then you come over to my side of the property, which would be the south side, you have like a 50 or 60 foot right of way with a pipeline, and then someone else is north of it with another pipeline. So, you know, that all concerns me too. We're gonna have all this construction on top of 3 pipelines. I don't know how they're gonna do it, to be honest with you. But, you know, that concerns us, and the property values, cannot think of a place a commercial business went in and it raised property values. You know, and I mean, when I say I live next door, I'm talking about 5 foot from the adjacent property, you know, is my property line, between the pipeline, I guess, and myself. So that's our concern, and we just really worried about the property values and, you know, what's gonna happen in the future. If this is okay, is more gonna be okay? And all of a sudden, we've got people here that's bought large tracts of land, built nice homes, and now it's gonna be a spot zoning from here to the other side, you know, up to Southern Loop, where Southern Loop has plenty of commercial property on it. I don't know if it's zone commercial, I don't know. But, you know, that's my concern. And if there's any questions
Do
or
we have
anything.
any questions for the speaker?
I'd like to make a comment, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Sir, if you did not receive notifications on behalf of the MPC, I'm the executive director, and we truly apologize to you and any of your neighbors that did not receive the proper notification. And we will look into why you did not receive those notifications, and if this process continues onward, we will ensure that you get properly notified. And again, we're sorry.
We take that very seriously. Mr. Clark is very much on top of that. His
And I
staff,
will
that
stand-
is very important to us, that people be properly notified.
Right, there's quite a few didn't get them, and I will stand that I'm not for any commercial establishment to the north of me.
Let me ask you a question, just in general, just speaking. You spoke of pipelines and some things that you feel that might be some impediment to this particular application being built there. What would fit there?
What would I like? I'm sorry.
What would fit there in your opinion? Because what we have is someone that owns property that's.
Sure. Oh, I understand. I
That's
understand
RA,
totally.
and
Yes,
so
ma'am.
we're just I'm trying to get a feel for what you think. That was already asked of another person.
You know, I'd like to see it as everybody else with 4 or 5 3-acre lots through there become a resident, not a commercial. You know.
And would they also, in your opinion, would they also have that same impediment with the gas lines, with these pipelines that you were saying? that are
There's
going
not
through?
much places on there to build anything if you really, you know, see the right of ways. You know, which that would be, of course, between the pipeline people and the property owner, you know. But,
I just
yeah,
curious.
I'd rather see it be a resident.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay?
All right, we appreciate you coming in. Any
All
more
right.
questions?
Questions?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to speak in opposition? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Terry Williams, and I reside at 9926 Wallace Lake Road. And I would like to thank Mr. Clark. I just had some dealings with him, with y'all, and he was very nice and very sweet.
We think so too. Thank you for saying that.
So, yeah, I did want to thank him for that. On the commercial side of it, I am all for going to the table to speak, but on this particular issue, I've been out there for over 33 years, and I plan to retire and stay. And, or I'm trying to, with every inch of my being. And with that being said, if it goes commercial, even if it is made to look nicer, presentable in the area, it would still be zoned as commercial. And it would open the door to the next person down the road and easier to go commercial.
Okay.
We can't even safely walk to the end of our driveway and walk across Wallace Lake Road and get our mail.
Yeah, I don't think y'all even have shoulders on that road if I'm,
The wind, when the wind is blowing and a car is coming at you 60, 80 miles an hour, and we have complained, and I myself have complained numerous times to the sheriff's department, and they had us at a residential speeding limit sign at 35 a couple months ago. And I went up to the substation up on Mansfield Road and filed a complaint against it because I was begging for them to put one of those little speeder photographer. And they were putting them on Ellerby and Linwood, but they wouldn't get them on Wallace Lake Road. Meanwhile, they kept extending the lane, making the lane on Wallace Lake Road more highway formatted. And they've already bought up a portion of our property down the line, which I see it even fixing to come even more. You know, they're gonna want to take more. They've taken 0.6 off my property already. But with that, a week after I left the sheriff's department from the complaint, they didn't fix the speed limit sign from 35 to even go lower. They bumped it up. So we're still unsafely even backing out of our own driveways onto this highway in a residential area where they allow them to do the 45 miles an hour. And that is very, very concerning to me.
it's a safety
I have
concern.
grandkids and I have my family, and if I can't safely walk across the road to my mailbox, it's very concerning.
All right, Ms. Williams, let me see if anybody has any questions for you or any comments. Do we have anything for the speaker? No? Okay. Anything
I
for
do have one.
Okay.
I want to thank you. I like the way you began and you gave the thanks to the staff, and I want to thank you
Yes,
very
and Mr.
kindly.
Clark wasn't in here.
Very kindly for that. I want to thank you for that. And I also want to thank you that you reported your concerns and they were heard, I guess, in some kind of way, and didn't maintain the speed limit, but you made it so important, your concern of safety, that they increased the speed limit. In these meetings, I also want to thank you for being willing to sit at the table and have some dialogue where all of the dear concerns can be made. So I really thank you for coming today, and you helped to mitigate all of the concerns, and I do feel the community. I do feel new establishments, possibly commercial. I do feel you that the next commercial venture and the next commercial venture. But as we grow, we've got to figure out how to make it the best place to be. And thank you again for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Okay, do we have anybody else that would like to speak in opposition? Okay, seeing none. We did not have a primary speaker, correct? We've gone, okay. All right, so no rebuttal. All right, so we have a decision to make, board.
I'll make the motion.
All right.
I make the motion that we accept the applicant's request to defer this submittal to a later date.
Second.
Okay, all right, we have a motion on the floor in a second. Now, before we move forward, I just want to make sure that we don't need a clarification on what instructions we're sending to the staff with this deferral. Do you need me to speak on that, Mr. Clark?
The planning staff has shared with me that probably by deferring until a later date, this will probably come before you in March.
Okay.
And that's why we're not asking you to defer for 30 days, but just defer to a later date.
And we don't need to speak about a SPUD, or, I mean, do you need a direction on that from us, from the board?
They are going to resubmit their application, and
Okay.
we will bring it back to you.
So we have direction. I just want to make sure that we all understood where we were going with this. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Marsheed to postpone the application until the March meeting, correct?
No.
Or just till a later
defer it
date.
With the staff can
Just
determine
defer?
what date.
We don't need to set a date?
No.
Okay, so we're just going to defer. We're going to
Yeah.
defer the case for future business. And a second by Mr. Brown and Ms. Green, correct? Did you second? Oh, I thought you did. Ms. Hart, sorry. I knew it was somebody else. Okay, we are ready. Any need for discussion?
No.
Okay, we're ready to vote. All right, on a 6-0 line, this case will be postponed for a future date to be determined by the staff. We thank you all for coming in and sharing your point of views on this. Okay, and Mr. Clark, as he said, will work on that notification for y'all, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, thank you. All right, that takes us to case number 3, agenda item number 8, case 2239P, special use permit. The applicant is Moore and Associates. Do we have a primary spokesperson for this application?
Hey, I'm Rob sorry, y'all. Rob Rollins, 1324 North Hearn Avenue, Suite 301, Shreveport, area code 71107. I'm just here to answer any questions you may have about what we're requesting here.
That was quick. Do we have any questions for Mr. Rollins?
Yeah, I actually do. So I see that pretty much this whole application is just to increase the from 25 foot to 40 foot for the lights.
That's correct.
And we just wanted more clarification on what are the positives to you doing that? And is there going to be extra light for, say, the neighbors that are close by and stuff? But
Okay, so the reason SWEPCO really wanted to do this was to increase the capacity, the usable capacity of the yard, also to make the site more maneuverable during big storm events when they have to rush out and go repair their infrastructure. They're going to have a lot of vehicles, big trucks in the yard, so a bunch of poles in the way could cause some issues, slow them down or whatnot. Also, economically, it's a little better situation for them. They're saving, I think, 17 poles if they go with 40-foot poles other than 25-foot poles. As far as the neighbors seeing the light, we do meet the UDC requirement of 0 foot candles at the property line. I will say that these are going to be 40-foot poles with lights on top of them, so from a distance you will see a light. It just will not, let's say, illuminate the neighbor's yard or anything like that.
Your discussion about lighting is about poles.
Correct.
This is not an issue about poles. This is an issue about light fixtures. How many light fixtures are you going to put on a pole?
1.
Why? You're asking to reduce the number of poles?
Correct.
Why don't you put more light fixtures and you can have less poles?
Well, I can approach the architect and suggest that to them.
I would strongly suggest you do. This seems like a one-shot lighting design without other possible design alternatives.
I can definitely bring that up to the consultant and see what other designs can be brought out.
We've seen parking lots with as many as 4 fixtures on a single pole.
Okay.
I mean, I think you could probably reduce the number of poles you have even more.
That can be definitely considered.
Okay. Any other questions? We would be interested in knowing that had any impact on the overflow to the
I'm a little
neighbors.
disappointed that AEP does not have somebody here with the technical knowledge to talk about lighting.
Right.
You know, and you're asking us to do something that is technical in nature, and we don't have the information.
Correct.
And I think one way that I'm looking at this, and I'm not as, Mr. Marsheed is much more qualified to speak to this, but it's dark there now. It's dark.
Correct.
Okay? And so now we're going, now some light of some sort, whether it's 25 poles or whether whether it's 25-foot poles or 40-foot poles, is going to be introduced into a dark area. So no matter what happens here, we're lighting up something.
Correct.
With our decision, okay? So the question becomes, to me, what is the best way to approach this? Because you have 3 residential homes sitting on the back side of that lot.
Correct.
That are going to potentially be lit up just by the nature of the light being introduced, and it's going to change the way that how they live. It's going to light up their property. It's going to be something different for them. So we, in our work meeting, we ask a lot of questions about this layout. And while I understand the economics of it, and it makes sense to do make a smarter decision if it costs less and the outcome's the same, I still am worried about what is happening to the neighbors behind this property, okay? So I would suspect that if Mr. Marsheep, if you were going to entertain what his recommendation was, is that we get a clear understanding of what that impact is going to be to those adjacent properties.
Okay.
Likewise, okay? Now, that would be something that I would like to see.
Understood.
And that might just be someone coming in here and saying, look, this would be something comparable.
Right.
If we had half the lights in this room, that, this, just something simple.
Okay.
I don't have to be as formal as him. I don't measure candle feet, foot, feet, light, that's outside of my area. But I know that I would not want to walk out into my yard at night and it be lit up like a runway compared to what it looked like before.
Understood.
Okay, and I know there's measurements for this, but we're introducing light into an area that's new.
Correct.
Okay. Any other comments from the staff regarding this?
Yes, I have one. I have a concern about, excuse me, that you were saying that if it was 40 feet poles that was put in place, that'd be 17 less. So how many total with the 25 feet?
The 25-foot poles would be, with the current layouts that we're seeing, would be 55 poles, and the 40-foot poles would be 42. So that's 15 less poles, or 13
thank
less.
you.
Apologize.
Okay. Any more questions for the applicant? Okay. All right. Thank you for coming in, sir. Is there anybody else here to speak in favor of the application? Anybody like to speak in favor? Okay, seeing none, is there anyone here that would like to speak in opposition to the application? All right, seeing none. Board, what is your
I'll make a
pleasure here?
motion.
Okay,
I make a motion that we deny the request to change the height of the poles that are allowed under the current zoning.
okay, we have a motion on the floor to deny the application as submitted. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, we have a second for Mr. Brown and a second for Ms. Hart. Okay, any need for discussion?
Can I also?
I would like to add, though,
Okay,
to have a professional from AEP, SWEPCO, to be here.
okay,
To give us a little bit more insight as to how this is going to affect the neighborhood or what benefit it's going to be to the company as well.
okay. Could you hear that, sir? Okay,
Are you suggesting that they reapply?
that's what I was
Because
going to
that's
ask. that.
really what you would have to do to be able to present a better case.
Okay, hold on, if y'all give me just a second, because I think Mr. Clark needs to come in here, because we need to make a decision here, or potentially make a decision or a motion that is going to be in the best interest of the applicants.
We're just checking to see if you deny this application, will they have to wait a year, or could they just
We could
immediately
defer it.
reapply?
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at, Jake.
And that's what we're looking into.
Yeah,
this
I don't
very
want this to
second.
be a year, personally. I don't think that we need a year for, would it be better for us to consider
Then
deferral?
I rescind my motion.
We haven't verified that
Second.
yet.
Okay, the motion's rescinded and seconded to rescind, so right now we don't have a motion on the floor, just for the record.
I'll make a motion that we defer the application
Okay.
for
You
30
wanna-
days.
You want to wait and see what he says about the 100-day, about a year deferral, waiting period?
If the applicant's okay with just a deferral for 1 month,
Okay, hold on just a second, because I don't think at this point I can have you back up. We'll have to, I think we would have to vote on that. Okay, I got two hands down here. Go ahead, Ms. Hart. You were up first.
Also, I wanted to add to it, Mr. Marche had also brought out to him about, with the pole, why can't they just put, 2 lights on the pole? Recommend that they redesign it.
Yeah, I agree. That's the
Yeah.
kind of design input that we need. We need more input.
Okay, all right, Ms. Hart, go ahead. I'm sorry, Ms. Green, I'm sorry.
Thank you. And of course, since we don't have SWEPCO present, and we know they have some needs and some concern with whatever they're proposing, you know, I'm concerned about a decline or a not approve it, because I just don't know SWEPCO's plan of action in any regards. So our fairness, I think a deferment is most in this particular manner.
Can I-
We have no discussion whatsoever of what your decision is. We just felt that there was inadequate information, and we felt that SWEPCO would have been considerate enough to provide the technical assistance that you would have needed to make a decision at this hearing. But since they chose not to, if you are able to, if you decline, desire to defer, we will reach out to SWEPCO to ask them to have a
But I have a
technical
question.
person at your meeting.
Mr. Clark, and I asked this in the work meeting, so I'm gonna ask it again. They're under this zoning, as it sits now, they have the right for the 25-foot
That is correct.
poles. Okay. So they can put those
They can
under
put
ordinance?
they can put the 25 feet light up, and we can end this and go home.
Yes.
Or
Okay.
you can defer and continue to next month, and they can come and have someone to answer all the questions that you
Okay.
have.
Can we, Mr. Bernstein, if we want to have the applicant come back to the podium, do we have to vote to have him brought back up for question?
I think in the nature of this, no ma'am, if you were really going to reopen it to a more extensive discussion, you would be best to move to suspend the rules.
Okay.
But I think the short interchange that you're talking about here,
Okay.
we can just do it informally.
Okay, is anybody against me bringing him back to the podium? Let me
I
just.
think we should.
Okay. Can you come back to the podium, sir? I'm just want to make sure we do this the right way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we had a comment. Let's start with Mr. Humphrey. Let's go back to him. Do you want to?
Yeah, my concern is because there was not a representative here from SWEPCO. Of course, you're working with more, and it's being the engineer or associate of some sort for them. Well, we need more of the technical information, and only SWEPCO representatives who were there would be able to answer those questions for us. And so we would rather defer and then have a representative from SWEPCO to give us more of the pertinent information that we need to move forward or to act on this proposal.
I believe that would be preferred by SWEPCO. We're working with other folks around the country to get this project together, and we want to start building it as soon as we can. So to push it back a year we really wouldn't want to do that. So if you do have a motion to defer, it would be appreciated, and we would definitely come back within a month, bring a representative from SWEPCO and answer any questions you have, provide more technical data, and possibly additional layouts to see if we can explore different options for the lighting.
Okay, I have a question for you. Did your firm do the photoelectric?
We did
lamp?
not.
You did not?
No,
That
ma'am.
was done by
Out of town
others.
firm,
Okay,
yes.
okay. Did you have anything, Mr. Marshy?
No.
Okay,
no.
he always,
And-
okay.
And basically, that's really what we're asking for, is more technical information on the lighting.
Okay, I'll make sure everybody, okay, go ahead, Ms. Hart.
And mine was dealing with the lighting, with the footage of the lighting, like, the 40 feet, you had informed me that it'd be 42 in place with a 25-foot, that it would be 55.
Yes, ma'am.
But if y'all could take it and put 2 lights on the 25-foot
That
and
would
spread
seem
it out.
That would seem to
You know,
reduce
that was
the
just
number.
one of my
On either or,
recommendations.
correct.
Okay, anybody else? Ms. Green? You have, okay, Mr. Brown? Okay, all right. All right, any more questions? Okay, thank
All right,
you.
thank
Thank
you.
you for coming back up. All right, So the motion was rescinded, so we do not have a motion, and it was seconded for us to rescind it. So we need to go back, and I need to ask, does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion that we defer this matter until the next scheduled meeting.
Okay,
Second.
I'll second it.
all right, we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Marshev to defer to the February meeting, and second by
Committee.
The committee. Mr. Brown, for the record, I said Mr. Brown. Okay, we are ready to vote. Okay, 6-0 for a deferral to next month's business with the information that we spoke with you about. Okay? And I will say that if you have any questions, that Mr. Clark, Mr. Jean, the MPC office can handle that for you, okay? Okay. All right.
Madam Chair, I just want to be able to answer that question. The year rule, it would be in play on that last
Okay, well, I'm
case.
glad that somebody brought that up. That would have been, it's a year.
Y'all can feel my spirit, though, when I'm not comfortable.
What's the jinx?
It was good, okay. All right, that takes us to the end of our public hearing section. Takes us to the end of our public hearing section, so we're gonna go into number 9 on the agenda, which is old business, and that's the committee chair reports. So we don't have, any, committees or chairs, so I think, did you need to say something, or here?
No, I'm just gonna say, Madam Chair, now that things have stabilized and the commission has taken the necessary steps to create this board, if you're inclined to create committees, it's at your discretion. We will provide you with committees that other boards similar to you have, if you so desire. But if you're ready to do that, feel free to do that.
Is that something that I do as the chair, or we do as a board?
You assign the committees, yes.
Yeah, I think we're ready to do that, but we certainly would like some guidance of what committees were
Yeah, and we will
appropriate
pull all that
for us.
information and have it for you at your next meeting.
Okay, now can we do
Work
that
with
as?
the parish to make sure that they don't have any problems with our recommendations.
Okay, do we have to wait, or can we actually do that assignment in the next meeting?
You can make them in the next meeting.
Okay, all right. So I would, if you could get that to me as soon as possible, and then I will put out the information that you gave me to the board members, and then maybe the option here is for some feedback from each one of
Be
you.
happy to, Madam Chair.
Excuse me?
I said we'll be happy to.
Okay, and if the board members will give me some feedback, I'll get it out to y'all, and if you'll let me know what you have an interest on serving on, that will help me.
Thank you, Laura.
I got a question.
I do have a question.
I'm sorry, I got 2 people sitting. Go ahead, Ms. Cruz.
Thank you. I do have a question. I think a couple of meetings ago, we talked about, and that may be what these committees are all about. We talked about master plan for the parish and just so many of those things, and those meetings are recorded about a couple of months ago. But I've not heard anything so far with that in-depth conversations that we had going. Is this part of the committees you're talking about, reports, or is this something different?
Well, my understanding of the committees would be something that would be significant, that we would need to have some, let's say, focused individuals on to represent this board, so that from a planning and zoning standpoint, that the individuals that are on given committees, whatever their focus is, that we would be represented and we would have a voice on some things, on how we feel about it, what we think should be done, and things of that nature. And get information for this board as well.
Which may coincide with that couple of months ago meeting, the master plan for the parish and all those topics we talked about then?
I would imagine that would be a very important
That could
committee.
very well call.
Thank you very
Yes.
kindly.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, Ms. Cruz.
I think it's important to have committees so that we can conduct business in small groups, so we never constitute a majority of the members present at a time, so which we can't do. So if we have committees of just 2 people on a committee, or maybe 3,
Yeah.
we never have a quorum.
Oh, right, I understand, yeah, okay. Well, this is all new to me as it is to y'all, so I didn't get if I had a committee assignment, I'm not sure.
We're sort of, venturing slowly through this process.
Yeah.
Also with you, and depending on guidance from the parish attorney's office and so forth, exactly what we could recommend to you to do.
Yeah, because I would just say I would not want the process to go forward. Let's just use the example Ms. Green had for the master plan and any zoning changes that will be forthcoming without us having some significant representation in meetings with the parish commission or wherever those committees need to be in place, and for whomever is going to be serving on those committees. It's just important, I guess is the way to say it.
Mr. Clark, I have a question though, because we have 6 members of this board. Well, how many committees do we have to make up?
And that's what I'm going to work with the parish attorney to find out. I mean, the thing you have to embrace is the fact that this is a Caddo Parish Commission board. And that's why I'm asking to work with the parish attorney to determine, what recommendations we can make to you and assist you in setting up. This is not, they may suggest to us to use the same committees that the Metropolitan Planning Commission Board has. They may suggest other boards, so I can't give you an answer, and I apologize for that fight, but we're going to reach out to them to get some directions, and we will work with you to achieve those goals as you decide if you desire to have committees. I think Mr. Marchief is exactly right. I think they're very productive. You don't have a quorum. There are things that are not required to have meetings, and you can bring those discussions back to the entire board. So that's why if you just give us until February, we'll come back with some information for you.
Okay.
And I think another concern that's really deep is we do represent the people that we are serving. And I don't think it's just this meeting, but I think this is a perfect time of the year. We're in January, that we really make it a priority. And I know that you do, so please don't think that I don't think that you do.
No.
That these persons get notifications in whatever manner, that there's some type of systematic way that people are notified in a very, very thorough way. And I know I'm gonna hear right now that notices go out, and I'm not saying that they don't, because I believe that they do. But I do believe there is a huge gap in there with that information.
And Ms. Green, we constantly study the effectiveness of our notification. Just like you, we feel very, very compelled to ensure that the public is made aware of and notified when public meetings are held, that they can participate in. We don't take that lightly at all, and we evaluate it on a very regular basis. And we explore options that are being utilized throughout the United States to determine whether there are better ways to ensure public engagement and so forth. So please don't think we think that we got the perfect system and we're just going to sit on it and make no improvements. We're constantly looking at what we're doing and trying to make it better.
Thank you, Kylie.
Okay, any more comment under that? Okay. So that takes us to number 10 on the agenda, new business. Do we have any new business?
Yeah, I have one item. Staff brought up the issue of the differences in the cell tower ordinances between the city and the parish. And I would like to make a recommendation that the staff study this in more detail and bring our ordinance, the parish ordinance, more in line with the city ordinance, so that when these cell tower applications come in, there's apples and apples there, not apples and oranges. Do we need to do that in a motion or anything?
Well-
or
And
it's
and
just
I'll
a-
just let Mr. Bernstein direct you in what needs to happen, but
Yeah, you know, from that standpoint, you know, certainly a motion and a vote would direct staff to do that. You could also, you know, just as you've done, you know, bring it to their attention that for them to respond, to say, yes, there are differences and here they are. It's, you know, either way. I would observe that cell phone towers have been a topic of concern in my national meetings. That there's a great deal of concern among local governments with regard to the requirements that have been put on them by the Federal Communications Commission. And so I think it would be appropriate, just my 2 cents worth is I think it would be appropriate to take a look at.
Okay.
I have a question for, if I may, Mr. Clark, maybe it's possibly for your staff, because we talked about this in the work session. And I just want to make sure I understand. Do we not have a separation requirement in the parish for distances between 2 cell towers, or we do?
if I'm remembering what Adam said, we do not.
We do not in the parish.
I didn't think so. Okay, I just want to make sure I heard that right.
Yeah.
I thought that's what you said.
Yeah, I think my recommendation for the staff to communicate is so that we can vote later at some point in time to amend our ordinance to bring it more in line with what the city is doing.
We will accept that request if that's the request that this board is making.
Okay.
Thank
So-
you.
And either have something for you in the February or March meeting
Yeah,
to look at.
I think at the very least, Mr. Marshev, it needs to be reviewed. We need to see where we're falling, where some of this stuff is falling short, so.
Could y'all email us the sections in our ordinance that deal with that
Be
so that
happy
we
to.
can read that beforehand and?
Be
and
happy to, Adam is making notes now to do just that.
See what the differences are?
Yes, sir.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So we don't need to do anything formal then?
If Mr. Bernstein is happy, we can move forward and we'll have that information for you.
Just a request from the board?
Unless somebody vehemently opposes it such that you need to take a vote.
All right. Do we have any opposition to that request? From anybody on the board?
Are we going to review it, email?
Well,
We're
Or are we just
asking
going
them
to
to
be in
tell us what the
agreement?
differences are.
Both.
So that we can then make a decision.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
Both, we're both. We
We'll do
want
that.
to be informed and we want to know where we need to go, I guess is the statement, so. Okay, so we'll just make that request then. I'll make that request as the chairperson.
We'll take care of it,
to do
Madam
that.
Chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, any other new business? Let me get my glasses, sorry. Okay, that takes us to number 11, other matters to be reviewed by the commission, and we have a director's report as a bullet point. Mr. Clark?
And I've given you all the information that I have for you today, Madam Chair. I'll just yield to the possibility of public comments.
Okay. Okay, that takes us to second bullet point, which is public comments, and I think I see Mr. Crackman sitting in the audience.
Yeah, Rural Caddo Parish's resident loudmouth is here, yes.
Well, give us your name and your address, Mr. Crackman.
I'm Chris Crackman. It's 122 North Lake Street, Oil City, Louisiana, 71061. I'm just here to speak generally about a lot of what Ms. Green actually said about the 2030 master plan and the creation of this board as a temporary board originally. And the creation was for the master plan review, for the Unified Development Code review. As some of you know, I'm the co-founder of the Caddo Alliance for Freedom. I'm 1/5 of the outfit that got y'all into this mess. Now, I know y'all kind of got pigeonholed into being a planning and zoning board, whereas originally y'all were supposed to come up with ideas about the UDC and the master plan. And now here y'all sit making decisions on cases. I'm not sure if that's what y'all volunteered for. If y'all did, I'm so sorry. But originally and now, y'all are charged with fixing the predicament that we've been in since, I think, 2017 or so. By design, y'all were put together to whittle down the Unified Development Code, to take regulations away. Now, fortunately enough, Attorney Bernstein has let you all know that y'all have the authority to rewrite the master plan. You don't even have to amend it. You can rewrite it or sublet it to be rewritten. I like this group. It's a very intelligent group. Y'all are very concise and y'all deliberate very well. But I would really appreciate if this group would get back to y'all's original cause and how y'all were put together. And that was to not make us the Wild Wild West, but reasonable and germane to lifestyles that are rural Caddo Parish, with understanding that there are subdivisions on the city limit line. But we had our Citizens Advisory Committee, and we made a recommendation, but our recommendation was made after this body was already put together. So you all are charged with fixing a lot of the things that my group kicked and screamed about in late 2019. And it may behoove you all to go back, watch some of those meetings from December 2019 or whenever it was. Maybe it was October, I don't know. All of 2020 with the Caddo Parish Commission, and listen to some of the stuff that we were crying about. But I think right now the Unified Development Code is 312 pages. It should not be that. And y'all are here to whittle that down. So rewrite that master plan, make that committee, and make us proud. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr.
I got a
Blackman.
question.
Yes, sir.
So why would you say that the 320 some odd pages that you mentioned are not necessary?
I'm not going to say they're not necessary. I am going to say that they are excessive. As far as
Give me an example. What you,
as far as conformity to the city, like
Well, I can make a comment. There's a downtown district in the Unified Development Code. The parish doesn't have a downtown district.
there's that.
No gravel roads.
Yeah.
There's
So
that.
you
See,
gotta
y'all are already
do
doing a great
asphalt.
job.
So, I mean, honestly, I mean, that's kind of like, we're having to do these PUDs right now because we're having to kind of work with what we've got with the UDC. And I think, you know, if you look at Blanchard's rules are less strict than, you know, our rules, because our rules, it was kind of based on what the city wanted us to be. The problem we have with that right now is the city of Shreveport actually needs to shrink because it's gotten so big that that's why the roads are so bad and the school system's so bad, is they've expanded too far to try to get tax base, as opposed to, you know, like, let's fix the interior so that businesses will stay and so that people will stay in our schools and not go to Bossier. Bossier's growing crazy right now. And I don't want to see that happen to the area I live in, you know. So this 5 mile zone, yeah, maybe one day Shreveport will get their act together and maybe, you know, it'll expand out to where we are, but like, we're a long way from there. And I just want to make sure that the people that live in our area, you know, that they're able to, you know, operate businesses, have their kids in good schools. You know, I mean, we can be the area that, you know, is, you know, growing, and it is growing. Our area is growing. The city's still kind of just staying stagnant, you know, not really growing. So, I mean, it's just that code was set up. That's why it's called a unified development code, because it's unified with Shreveport. That unification was broken with House Bill 697. And he also brought up a good point on the master plan. That's kind of the basis that drives the codes. So if we have a master plan that's more based on private property rights, like, I mean, yeah, I don't want to allow someone to put huge 40-foot lights that are going to affect those neighbors, but I mean, I think we all as a group could sit down and come up with something that it's cornerstones private property rights. But, you know, it's something to where everybody's going to be able to run businesses, have barbershops, do certain things, and it's all good. I mean, the scare is pig farms and, chemical plants and all this stuff that they say, if we are the wild, wild west, that's what's going to happen. But I mean, I think we can come up with a set of codes. If you look at Blanchard, they have really easy zoning that lets people live free. And I think, we need to look at, we have other spots. We've got Greenwood where Mr. Clark lives. It's the same way. And we need something that's maybe even a little less strict than that, because we're not in a city. But like, God, it's got to at least be that, and right now it's not. The whole plan was set up by people that we paid to put this plan together, and it's these same companies that are going around the whole nation right now, and they're putting the same plan in place on the East Coast, on the West Coast. We all have the same codes, and we're not the West Coast and we're not the East Coast. We're all, living out on an acre plus land and having chickens and, kind of doing what we want to do and farming and stuff like that. And I think we just need something that's more based like that. And I think it's going to make our lives easy as a board, because it's just real easy zoning. It's just not confusing.
If I could just have just one little minute. It's been made clear and admittedly that the Unified Development Code in Rural Caddo Parish is not germane to the way that a lot of people live in Rural Caddo Parish in the 5-mile zone. Director Clark has made it clear that it's not germane and that it does need to be fixed. It's very broken, and that's how this board came about in the first place. And I'm seeing the Caddo Parish Commission and Long Range Planning, they're still talking about making amendments to the 2030 Master Plan, which I really don't understand, because that is what you all are charged with. Instead, y'all are being scapegoated and pigeonholed into being the Planning and Zoning Board, when that's not only the case. Y'all are placed here to streamline cases that already existed and to fix what was broken, and then continue on with regular business.
Well, I assure you, we have had discussions about this very subject, and it is our intent to look into creating a document that's for the parish. It's not going to happen overnight, and I sincerely appreciate you being here and shedding some light on some issues that I was totally unaware of. I'm new to this process, as most of us are, so we're learning as we go on this, and we will continue to ask for y'all's input when we start looking at the document.
And I can appreciate being a part of the solution rather than only being a part of the problem and coming up here and crying all the time. I can appreciate being a part of the solution as well.
And we appreciate that.
And I would like to see more of this on the agendas.
Well, I had an uncle that worked for Clico, and he was one of the top executives, and he always told me, he says, remember, the squeaky wheel is the only one that gets the grease.
Yes, sir.
So.
May I?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you
If you
mind?
lean just a little closer, though, only that.
Okay, if you don't mind. This is definitely new to me, but it's not new to me in being a servant to the people. And I think what happens far too often, people make decisions for people that they are not impacted in any kind of way. I'm saying that to say, a lot of these regulations are changed, and the people that are impacted, they don't know. They have no idea. And until we put people in places that understand what they're doing and how it impacts the people that they're serving, we won't get any further. So you are correct. We have to look at that master plan, and we can't keep shoving it under the road. People should be able to do what they desire to do with their properties per se. But this other person has a property too. So you've got to have some kind of ordinance or et cetera. But I'm still saying this. If we don't address it and make it a priority, we don't move forward.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
I will bring it up again, and I want to thank you.
Very good, thank you.
I'd like to get some clarification from Bernstein on one thing.
Absolutely.
So, Mr. Bernstein, I kind of read over the state law, and I just, for the record, so since we're the rural planning board,
Correct.
we actually can get Clark to help us make this master plan. We can hire somebody outside, but Clark and them can make the master plan, and we don't have to get it passed by the commission, correct?
The state.
I mean, we can supposedly if we want to, but theoretically, we end up wanting it because the commission's become so, sometimes it seems like politics play more of a part than what is best for the people.
Well, who's gonna pay for that becomes the question.
Yeah.
That's why
And
the
the money, they
commission
hold the
comes
purse
in.
strings.
You know, we made recommendations, and we're still doing a nationwide search to share with the Caddo Parish Commission the cost to do a parish master plan. We're gonna present that back to the Long Range Planning Committee. We operate at request. We have no authority. We operate strictly at request. We had started to put together recommendations for revisions and amendments to the Caddo Parish UDC. We stopped that process because the Caddo Parish Commission did not seem like that was something they wanted us to do. So I just wanted you all to know we're not refusing to take any actions and make any present stuff to you all to make recommendations, but we have to get a request from somewhere to take some form of action. We can't just, like we do with the Metropolitan Planning Commission, we just can't just initiate actions on ourselves.
Yeah, but us as a board, can we make a motion to do it? And, is there money in the purse right now
No.
for that?
No.
No. So the money that has been allocated for what we do here did
That will
not
not get
include
you a master
anything with the
plan.
master
No,
plan?
that will not get you a master plan.
Okay.
What,
And we've shared that with the Caddo Parish Commission.
But what if it's done in-house by this board here
I
and
don't know if you,
at
but that's the
the
decision that you will
directions?
make, but I don't know if you really want to take on doing a master plan. There are some firms with consultants that are rural and that are southern in nature that could do you a wonderful master plan. I don't know if you want to take on that responsibility yourselves. Now, what I'm hearing from Mr. Bernstein is that if you decide to do that, I guess you can do that.
Is that
Well, the statute says that the planning commission adopts a master plan. And I think the normal procedure is that you hire a consultant to do it because the number of hours that it requires and the research that requires is usually beyond the scope of what's funded for the staff of a planning commission. I may be wrong on that, Mr. Clark.
No,
but
not
that's
at
what-
all. That's what I'm sharing
Yeah,
with them.
so I think, basically I think it's a bit of a puzzle. One piece is your authority to adopt a master plan. The situation we find ourselves in is that you don't have an independent budget like the MPC does to fund those things. And in fact, of course, the last master plan wasn't funded out of the MPC operating budget. It was funded with both contributions from the parish and from the city. So even that master plan took an extra amount of money being budgeted to do it. So what we basically have to have is your desire to adopt a new master plan, the parish's agreement to fund it, and then have Mr. Clark's office be the implementers of that. That they, say, okay, here's what we need to ask in terms of a request for proposals to get people to come to us to say, this is how we would propose to do it, and this is the cost. And then, of course, sign a contract with one of those firms and move forward.
Mr. Clark, we discussed this maybe 2 meetings ago, if I'm right.
I think it was the December meeting.
We discussed this. and we made a
We made a
request
motion.
for something in that meeting. Can you somebody refresh I've slept
We
since
did.
then. I can't remember what.
They
how-
made a motion to
8:30
start
that night
working
or
on the
when-
master plan.
Yes, we need to.
I mean, but, you know, I think if you listen to Mr. Bernstein very carefully again,
We have to get the money.
yes, I mean,
Well-
we do not have the capability, the staff, the time, to start working on a master plan. And we have gone before the Caddo Parish Commission Long Range Planning Committee, and they're having discussions, and I think that that's part of the confusion. I think that what I'm hearing from Mr. Bernstein is that the document is adopted by the Planning Commission, the Caddo Parish Planning Commission Board, but, you know, someone is gonna have to appropriate the funds in order to start this process
And
to happen.
And I think the outcome of that committee meeting, I'm not even sure there was a quorum there.
No, it wasn't.
There wasn't, but I would say that there are commissioners that understand that they're going to be asked to fund it, and that they're open to being asked to fund it.
So we can make a motion to ask the commissioners
Yeah.
That's what I was
to
getting ready to
fund
ask. What is it?
the master plan.
And then perhaps, either as a part of that motion or just, you know, as the normal course of things, the chairman could come to the Long Range Planning Committee and say, okay, the Planning Commission has made this motion and adopted this motion, and I'm here on their behalf to say that we want you to fund this so that we can move forward, you know, with doing what the citizens want.
Let's say we do it.
It's good by me.
Quick question. For endeavor of this magnitude, what would be the cost to be involved, so we will know how much to ask for from the commissioners? Because
think
we
that-
can't just come up with an arbitrary figure and then think that we have enough to cover. So what would be the price to even do something to the?
And like I said, we were getting that information together. We were gonna bring it back to the Long Range Planning Committee, but I don't know if we're supposed to bring it back to you or to them.
Well, I think they were interested in you coming, in the staff coming back with a range, a number.
And
you know.
we're getting prepared to do
Yeah.
that, but, you know, we're being told by them to bring information back to them.
Yeah.
And now we're being told by you that you want us to bring the information to you all. I
Well,
think
if
that we need a process in place to eliminate all of the confusion and actually how this process will work. And we'll be more than happy to work in those parameters.
Okay, if I might, Mr. Clark, I think this is why it is so very important to have these committees. I can see that this would be something that the committee, we would have a committee for this, and we would have people on point for it, but your point's well made because you're getting direction from both places. Thinking back to December, that we were thinking that we had to start the process, if you will, and ask to move forward to open up the dialogue on how and what we need to do to start moving forward with the new master plan. And I don't know that I'm maybe any more clear today, because they hold the money, we have the desire. So who do we need, as the chair, I'm asking, do I go forward and talk with somebody one-on-one? Mr. Bernstein, what is your recommendation? Because Mr. Clark and them are in the middle of this, and they're the doers.
I think Mr. Brown's suggestion's a very good one. Because
make a
that
motion.
gives you an official position.
Okay.
That you as the chairman can communicate. I mean, that's, in any board like this, if you came to the committee and they said, okay, has the planning commission voted to do this, to ask you to do this, and your answer was no, then they're gonna say, well, you don't represent them, you're just representing yourself. And so
Gotcha.
I think it would be better if, you know, there was a motion to pursue pursue a master plan to approach the parish commission about funding a master plan, you know.
Okay.
something along those lines, and that'll get it going.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
Let me ask Henry, Henry, what would be the difference between a motion and us passing a resolution?
Not a great deal. I mean, the resolution's just simply putting it in writing, you know, and given the nature of what we're doing, a motion would be sufficient. I mean, you just, that way you'd be able to point to the minutes and say, yes, the motion to do this passed, you know, 6-0 or 5-0, and they can say, okay, that is, you know, the position of the Planning Commission.
All right, so I just want to, that's the master plan.
Right.
And so we're not worried about anything else at this point because we have the.
We have to do the
we
master
have the
plan
UDC behind this, right?
Right, so you do the master plan first, and that's what the codes will be based off of.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, I just want to make
So
sure
we've
because I know
got
they're
to,
two
that's what
separate things.
we've got to do. This is the first hurdle.
Okay, okay, so let me see if I can take charge of this. Does anybody want to make a motion regarding this?
I'll make one.
Okay, Mr. Brown, go ahead.
I move that we ask the Caddo Commission to appropriate funding to start working on a new master plan, a new rural master plan.
Okay.
Just one thing.
Go ahead, Mr.
Clear. Is this gonna be a Caddo Parish master plan?
It's only going to be for the 5-mile zone because the other residents, since there is no planning board, they aren't required to have a master plan.
The problem there is that the state law with regard to master plans says it is parish-wide. Now, the master plan might come back and say, we don't recommend that you do zoning here, or we recommend that you do something that lets everybody do what they want to. But the state law with regard to master plan says it is parish-wide.
Okay.
And frankly, with regard to the concerns that have been expressed, you really want that.
Right.
Because then that gives you something that says, this is what's, you know, and from that standpoint, the master plan then comes to you to adopt.
Right.
And so then that's your opportunity to say, yes, this is reflective of the parish. No, it's not reflective. Consultants go back and make sure that you address these issues. So it's an interactive process where the consultants and Mr. Clark's staff are going to be coming to you with a draft master plan that you're going to look at and come back to and go back to them and say, okay, here's some feedback. You know, you've said that you propose to put an industrial park in this part of the parish, or that this part of the parish we sort of designated for industrial development. We don't think that's appropriate. Explain why, and then you get into a dialogue, and perhaps you convince them that it shouldn't be, and perhaps they convince you that it's the best use for that property. But it's an ongoing process.
Okay.
Mr. Clark, am I?
You're absolutely right.
Okay, so do we need to reword it, or are we?
No, I think other than the rural restriction, I think probably the original motion, as Mr. Brown stated, it's probably perfect.
Okay.
Really to kick it off.
Okay, so the resolution, as Mr. Brown stated, is that we are going to ask the parish commission to appropriate funds to start the process to fund a new master plan for the parish,
Yeah.
but not the city,
Correct.
outside the city limits.
And I will interject one thing here. Interestingly enough, the law on master plans says that the city master plan has to be coordinated with the parish master plan, not the other way around.
That's interesting.
So, interesting.
Yeah.
I had a lot of hmms up here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought you might be interested in hearing
That is very interesting. So I think he's saying that makes us the leaders. So,
Yeah.
all right. So do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Mr. Humphrey. and
I'll
Ms.
second. I think we
Green.
all second on
Okay.
that.
It's second by the whole board, and we need to take a vote. Okay, that motion is supported in a 6-0 for, I guess I just gave myself some work, huh?
I have one thing
Thank
that I'm
you,
a
sir,
little
for bringing that
confused
to our
on, and
attention.
I think it still comes back to something that happened recently. What is this resolution number 3 of 2023 that the Caddo Parish Commission did recently?
I think it was pulled.
It was pulled.
I think it was
for
pulled.
mobile home. They were trying to stop people from having, mobile homes.
That was
And it was pulled.
Mr. Bernstein, I'm gonna ask you a question about that, because I wanna know for myself. We have codes, we have zoning codes, we have the UDC. Why would we move forward, why would we move forward with an ordinance on something that impacts zoning when we have a code in place? I'm just kind of scratching my head on this. I mean, that came across, or was being considered to be passed out of the commission as a ordinance, correct? No, I'm saying that wrong. Okay, can you explain that to me then?
Sure. Basically, the commission is allowed to make a request for a code text amendment.
Okay,
To you all and to staff, just like any other applicant. And so that
Okay.
was basically what that was the commission saying, would you please consider creating this zoning district with these guidelines and coming back to them. So basically that's their way of initiating a case in front of you all to consider a code text amendment of that nature.
Okay, I just misunderstood. Okay, and let's just say had that come and we said no, then they could overrule it?
It would be a denial, so then you would have to, theoretically in that situation, somebody could appeal to bring it up to them to
Okay.
consider, as in any other case.
It was just an odd,
Yeah,
odd
it's just like,
thing.
it'd be like any other case.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that. All right, do we have any more comments under, Mr. Crackman, thank you for coming in. We appreciate you. Okay, so then that takes us to number 12, the chair, board members' comments. I will start by saying, once again, how much I appreciate each and every one of you and your willingness to be different. Because I see a huge difference in this board and the way it operates compared to the board I came from. And that's not to say the other board wasn't good, it's just that the dialogue between us and the community, I think, is very honest in, the way that we approach these cases. Because I felt really good today about that case, the first case. There were some things going on, but I think we did a really good job of digging out. And I want to always make sure that the people sitting in this lobby feel like they've been heard, okay? That's the most important thing, is to and that's why I wanted to make sure that every one of those questions got answered by staff while they were here. And Mr. Clark, thank you for being willing to and Mr. Jean, to answer those on the fly, because, I could see that they were very concerned about this, and this was the second time it had come to us. So I know it's a little bit different doing business with us than it is the other, the other way the city does it, and we thank you for being willing to shift with us on that.
I just like to say, and I'm gonna be real brief because
Sure.
I had said we'd be out of here before 5 o'clock.
I'm sorry.
We didn't quite get there, but I think that we're doing some very important exercises, and I really think we're headed in a good direction, and we appreciate the thought process that you have and the input that you provide. And I've always said, and the staff will share with you, I stress that the people must be heard. And if the people are not heard, we do not exist. So I think that I don't know what will come out of the master planning process, the revisions to the code or the new code or whatever. I still think that the PUD process has been a good process. I mean, I think that the PPPs have been very good processes to make sure that the people are heard. And that first case today showed the possibilities. Now, we will see. I mean, it's it's a process. And that's what I like about it. It's a process that you go through in order to get these things accomplished. There seemed to be a whole lot of opposition to the second case. But there may be grounds for compromise and understanding and collaboration and so forth. I just wanted to real quickly share with y'all that you're doing a wonderful job. It's a pleasure working with you. And like I've said to both Mr. Crankman and Mr. Brown, through the House Bill 697 process, we never had crosswords for each other. We understood, we respected the desires that each one had. And the process opened itself up and it happened. And we're still moving forward. But it's really a pleasure working with you all. So we enjoy you all.
Well, thank you. We appreciate your
Mr. Clark.
leadership. Anybody else have a comment? Are y'all about ready to go home?
Ready to go home.
Ready to go home? Ready to go home? Anybody else?
Go home.
Okay, thank you.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Next week.
Thank you.
Ms. Sherry, do I need to sign? Okay, and where just on the bottom?
Secretary.
Oh, it's on